Hello. Our statement that we are all descendants of cannibals is a powerful and provocative assertion that has a serious scientific basis, but it requires a more detailed and nuanced examination. The direct answer is probably not all of us, but a great many of us carry the genetic and cultural legacy of ancestors who practiced cannibalism. Scientific data from archaeology, anthropology, and genetics paint a complex picture in which cannibalism appears not as a rare perversion, but as a recurring and multifaceted phenomenon in human history. Archaeological evidence, the silent testimony of bones. Across the globe, archaeologists find human remains with marks strikingly similar to the butchering of animal carcasses. On the bones of our distant ancestors and their relatives, such as Neanderthals and Homo antecessor, they discover cut marks and scrapes, traces of stone tools at muscle attachment points, indicating the removal of flesh, fractures and crushing, bones intentionally broken to extract nutritious marrow, traces of fire, signs of thermal processing, similar to cooking food, and absence of ritual burial. Human remains discarded along with animal bones and other household waste. Such findings, dating from hundreds of thousands to just a few thousand years ago, have been made in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. This suggests that cannibalism was a geographically widespread practice. Motives for ancient cannibalism, not just hunger. The reasons our ancestors ate their own kind were diverse and not always reducible to simple starvation. Nutritional cannibalism. In resource-scarce environments, human flesh could be a source of protein. However, studies show that from a caloric standpoint, hunting large game would have been more efficient. Ritual and funerary cannibalism. Consuming deceased tribe members could have been part of complex burial rites. It was believed that in this way, the strength, wisdom, or life force of the deceased was passed on to their living relatives. Warfare cannibalism. Eating fallen enemies could have been an act of intimidation, humiliation, or the symbolic appropriation of their power. Cultural cannibalism. In some societies, cannibalism was an established cultural norm, unrelated to hunger or war. The genetic footprint, an echo of ancient feasts in our DNA. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the widespread nature of cannibalism in the past comes from genetics. Scientists studying prion diseases like Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in humans and mad cow disease in cattle discovered an interesting fact. These fatal diseases can be transmitted by consuming nerve issue. A study of the PRNP gene, which codes for the prion protein, revealed the presence of protective mutations in many people worldwide. These mutations make them more resistant to prion diseases. The spread of these protective variants throughout the human population, according to scientists, may be the result of natural selection that occurred in societies where cannibalism was practiced. The most famous example is the 4 people of New Guinea who suffered from an epidemic of the Kiru disease in the 20th century, spread through the ritualistic consumption of the brains of deceased relatives. The survivors of the tribe were found to have these exact protective genetic variants. Such a genetic adaptation suggests that cannibalism was a practice common enough and long enough to have an impact on the evolution of our species. So, are we all descendants of cannibals? Despite the strong evidence, to claim that absolutely every person on the planet is a descendant of cannibals would be an overstatement. Here's why. Non-universality of the practice. Archaeological data also point to the existence of many ancient cultures with different burial traditions, such as internment or cremation. Cannibalism was widespread, but it was not universal for all Homo sapiens groups. Localization and timeframes. Outbreaks of cannibalism could have been localized to specific regions and time periods, linked to cultural peculiarities or environmental conditions. Complexity of interpretation. Some scientists urge caution, noting that not all cut marks on bones unequivocally indicate cannibalism. They could be the result of complex rituals for cleaning bones before a secondary burial. In conclusion, it can be said with confidence that cannibalism was a significant and widespread part of our species' past. Many of our ancestors undoubtedly practiced it for various reasons. Therefore, the statement that we are all descendants of cannibals, while a simplification, holds a great deal of truth. It forces us to reflect on the complex and sometimes brutal path humanity has walked in its evolution.